Tonight, we discover that Alpha may have manufactured a series of attacks against our survivor communities, which feels wholly appropriate in an episode that feels entirely manufactured itself. Plus, so much for trying to fit in. It's The Walking Dead, Season 10, Episode 4. Silence the Whispers. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of The Walking Dead. So, as usual, all of the spoilers are coming your way. Also, as always, do want to tell you about our quick jump index system. Right in the description below, we'll have this entire review titleized, codified, time-stamped. Jump to the end of the review first. Watch this beginning last. Watch this review in any order you'd like. Alright, so, the episode itself, kind of a little of two minds. I mean, look, we are establishing one thing here, I think very clearly, is nothing's going to happen until the mid-season finale. The whole first half of the season, maybe we'll get one or two little interactions, but I think for the most part, this is all going to be set up. This is all going to be dealing with people's mindsets and maneuverings and chess plays and little things with that, which, you know, I'm not against. But this episode felt very much filler. And it's not a bad episode. I mean, again, I'm kind of split where I have been in some ways kind of throughout the season. There wasn't anything really outlandishly bad about this episode. There wasn't anything painful. There were good story beats that were moving things along, you know, where we got conflicts in leadership happening at Hilltop. We have Judith trying to maneuver her way in a little more of an action space with Michonne and maybe working herself as a good sounding board. We have Lydia and Negan both dealing with trying to fit in at the Alexandria community and the complications involved with that. So, I mean, we have some good moments, we have some good scenes, but as a whole, everything feels like we're trying to get from A to B. And B may be, again, a good, fun, fine place, but how we get there is important. And here it really feels like we're almost ignoring some internal logic, even of the world that has been set up in order to get there. And that's where I'm saying it feels manufactured. It feels like we're just trying to get to a point, and how we get there, well, we can violate whatever logic and ideas and setup and common sense that may seem to get in the way of that. So it's just as the season is going on, we do have some great moments, and I like overall the feel of the season, but this is definitely a filler episode right here. Not a whole lot of action going on, not a whole lot of even real story development, just trying to get from A to B. So, with the opening of the episode, we seem to be sort of establishing what the things that we could lose, the things that we are fighting for, the things that are important with us. I mean, again, it's just kind of an emotional montage. You know, we got Daryl coming in and having dinner with Michonne and the kids, and yet still going upstairs and leaving a nice tray for Carol, little flowers in their little meal. I mean, it's sweet. I like that. We've got Magda and Nico having their little relationship moment. We, of course, have Ezekiel kind of doing the opposite there, dealing with not having someone in his life, that sort of loss, and sort of trying to deal with that, which sort of propels a lot of Ezekiel's storyline. And we can see how much is thrown in his off. First off, obviously, he's not getting any sleep. Then we have the tree crash, and he runs down as a leader to try and deal with everything, and yet he's completely incapable of advising. So then we have Nico kind of stepping up into that leadership position, which is where we're getting kind of the little beginnings of a shift and change that's happening over at Hillside. But actually, let's stick with Ezekiel for a minute, because his little arc in this, I mean, again, I can understand where they're coming from, and I think it's in some ways they do handle it appropriately. He has lost a lot of things. I mean, there was already kids early on. Then we have Henry. Then we have the kingdom itself. And we have Carol. I mean, all of these things that made Ezekiel the king in his position, they're all gone. So yeah, he's going through a bit of conflict. He's going through a little bit of self-doubt. Maybe even a little self-destructive moment, as we see with him standing up sort of at the edge of the platform where Michonne comes up to him. And then we get what I can only think of as fan service. For comic readers, you would know that, of course, Michonne and Ezekiel, long-standing item, huge relationship, because, of course, Rick was with Andrea, who wasn't killed off all the way back in season 3. And they are a big couple. So this, and they've hinted on that there might be a relationship or there might be something going on between Michonne and Ezekiel. And this moment here feels like just giving something to the fans. Oh, we have teased a possible relationship. Here we're going to have a moment where, of course, Michonne very much identifying a great little scene between her and Ezekiel afterwards, talking about everything that she's lost, the darkness where she has come from. I mean, wandering with zombies and cut off in chains. I mean, yeah, she was in a dark place early on. And even talking about the interesting idea of it being harder the second time because you remember having someone close to you. You remember that partnership and the thing. So, I mean, there is a great moment where the two of these individuals can sort of have a connection. But the whole kiss thing seems like that was made in order to put in previews to imply to the audience that some relationship is going to develop, which they are very clear is not going to. I mean, even Ezekiel has a line where maybe in another universe, obviously implying to a parallel comic book universe right there, the two of them could have been together. So, again, it's a good scene between them. It does show each side what they've lost and the struggles with trying to regain and overcome that loss and deal with a new world without that previous feeling around you and the darkness and stuff that you can go. And it's handled well. But the whole kiss and possible thing and so on, again, feels entirely manufactured just so we as the audience can get like that little comic book Easter egg. So, yeah, again, good scene, good basis, how it was presented. It just a little much. And of course, another Michonne scene that we saw actually right before that one was the trip to Hillside, where Judith is trying to be a sounding board for Michelle. And again, two minds of this scene, because I can see where they're trying to accomplish it. We're trying to see Judith as a smart, insightful person, somebody that's not weighed down by expectations, so can give maybe a different perspective to the situation, what's going on. And obviously, as a young girl, she wants to be a little bit more involved in the world and the fighting and everything else. For Michonne, for us, we get a chance to kind of get a quick summation of what it is that's going on with the attack, sort of as Michonne is thinking these things out. And sort of presented, well, this is where they're coming from. We're dealing with bullies, and you can't trust bullies. You can't take them at their words. You got to take them at their action. I mean, in some ways, it's a good way of getting a sort of a little insight into the thought process of Michonne. And even the idea that Judith presents that, well, maybe the Whisperers are getting us to run around and tired ourselves out, so we put ourselves to bed so we can become a little bit more capable of being taken over. We're basically defenses are being worn down. Which I think is a very good line and does push Michonne later on to really think about, hey, with everything that's happening, maybe the Whisperers are behind all this. Maybe Alpha is doing something. Maybe they're doing small hits on us. I mean, it's a good scene that gets us into this line of thinking. The downside of the scene is Judith herself. And I have said this before in this season. For some reason, Judith is not working for me at all. And I mean, she's cute, and she's got a great, cute little voice, and she's friendly, and I mean, there's some nice parts about it. The downside is, I mean, the problem with that is, I don't think those things should exist in this particular world. Judith sounds like she's in a world surrounded by My Little Ponies, not being raised in the Walker apocalypse. There is not there's no gravity to anything that she is saying. Everything is very childish and playful, which would work if she was more protected. But of course, then we have the constant scenes where she's sword fighting and killing and doing the stuff, which again, you want to lean in that badass direction, cool. But this scene showed how those two elements don't fit together. The girl who is talking is not the same person who should be the girl that's fighting. One just sounds too playful and happy, and one sounds just, and one's action doesn't fit the way that she speaks or interacts. Also, I'm sorry, she's kind of too small to be pulling all this stuff and going up against walkers with the cool ass sword stuff. I like it. It looks great. It just, it doesn't fit. And that's the issue that I'm really having with Judith here. I see where they're going with her. Again, she's filling in the Carl role. She's being the child inside. She's playing a particular role. She's playing a particular position. It just, the way that she is doing it doesn't seem to reflect that she is living in the world that everybody else is. And that's really the issue that I'm having with Judith. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up the whole kind of hilltop storyline going here. The tree falling and breaking through, it's a good inciting incident. It creates problems. Obviously, it gets us our issues of who's going to step up and who's going to be a leader. We see Ezekiel can't do it. Nico's the one to sort of step in, and we play with a lot of Nico stepping into those leadership roles here. The question that I have is, are there no guards on the walls at Hilltop anymore? I mean, they know that they just encountered the Whispers. They know that they are back. They know that Alexandria has had a series of attacks. So you would think that Hilltop might be just a little bit more cautionary. And yet the tree that's fallen, they're implying, hey, that tree seems safe. Was it pulled down? If there was anybody on the walls, they would have seen an army of Whisperers coming to try and push the tree down. So It just seemed kind of weird to me that they start to imply this. I mean, if it was outside, it's like 10 feet from the edge of the wall where this tree was. But it gives us a conflict, it gives us a little issue of dealing with people and dealing with stuff. And maybe that is the reason why there were so few fighters to go out and try and hold off the walkers once they realized that the wall had been sort of damaged and weakened and could potentially fall, and now with this onslaught of armies, go out and try and keep them from getting in. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe we just want to highlight our new group of heroes, because it was almost my scene of the week, but it was just too a little bit over the top. There's our hilarious set piece of the night, brought to you anime style. Really, really was. We get that great sweeping shot on the outside with Luke and Magda and Nico and Connie and the whole new group off fighting the walkers there. And we get a big sweeping shot, hero shot. We got Magda doing the stab and Nico stabbing it and Luke hitting it, and the camera moves around, and then we've got Connie and them up there with the wrist rockets and everything hitting everyone. I mean, it was a great, beautiful shot, but really it's like everybody was placed for maximum camera effectiveness right there. And there's only a small handful. So, I mean, it was a beautiful shot. It was cool. And yet, all I'm thinking is that there's only a handful of you. Where's everybody else? Where's the rest? I mean, Hilltop's a whole community. There are only a few people that seem to have gotten trapped underneath the tree. Maybe the rest of them are trying to help stand out. But it felt like we are trying to get a great hero shot of the new group. Again, manufactured. Which was even the conflict that started developing between Magda and Nico right there. Nico's trying to be in the leadership position. Actually, I've got a question with that. Isn't Nico their leader? At least the combat leader? From what I recall, she seems to be that seemed to be the place with her. And yet, throughout this, Magda is having issues with Nico stepping up into the leadership position. And no, Magda, you would not have been able to stand out with a small group of you with that onslaught of walkers. You really needed the rest of Hilltop there. Who wasn't? So yeah, of course, it was smart for Nico to go ahead and pull things back. Doesn't last that long. Wall comes down, which seems to me to have implied that this is now a bigger, tougher problem. We've got a long, slogging fight. And yet, at that moment, of course, is when Michonne and Judith and the other 5 people from Alexandria show up to go and fight, and we get our cool, Michonne and Judith fighting swords hand to hand right next to each other. Very cool. And then I guess it's just solved, because the next scene that we see with them is Michonne on the radio talking with Daryl with her concerns that, maybe the Whisperers are behind all of these attacks and such. So, even that, it's like we get our big drama, we have no one else in Hilltop, and yet as soon as these 4 people from Alexandria show up and the walkers are in the gates, everything seems to be sorted out there. We get our cool shots, we get our cool things, but you have now created a problem that you completely dismiss and just say that it gets handled. So, I don't know what the point of this, again, outside of just sort of filling time, giving us some great hero shots, but then creating a danger that's automatically just brushed aside and assumed to have been settled and taken care of because Sword Fighter and Sword Kid show up. Again, I love them. I was just expecting more. Meanwhile, in Alexandria, Lydia's finding a little difficulty in fitting in with the world. Really kind of cleared straight off with Margot and the boys, treating her like crap. And I'm going to take this moment right off the bat to say, I don't like what they're doing with Aaron this season. I don't like him being this angry, revenge-driven guy. It just, again, it seems out of character for him. I don't see why he is treating Lydia quite so badly and allowing Margot and the boys to go and just mess with her and tease her, and very cruelly. I mean, their opening scene really establishes cruelty. And yet, Lydia still trying to fit in. From the advice of Negan, of all people, who is also trying to fit in. And between the two of them, we're really seeing the kind of complications of doing this. I mean, and the truth of the reality is, outsiders will never be let in. They are both outsiders to the community. They have both been entranced and in some way seduced by the world that's being presented to them. For Lydia, it's a world where you don't have to walk with the dead, that you can have people, clothes, regular food. You don't have to be dripping in blood and guts and worried that if you sneeze, a walker's going to eat you. Okay? Good seduction right there. For Negan also has been seduced in a way into this world. Great scene between him and Daryl, where he kind of puts that out. Look, man, I'm trying to live in this world. I've been pulled into it. I want to be with that. You can see where the world that he was, but you guys got tomatoes in a community and this great, he is in his own ways, has tried to change and find a new place for him within this community. And yet, as we see throughout this, he is never going to be accepted, at least under the conditions that things are now. So in some ways, we're dealing with a little bit of cruelty from the culture itself that is trying to sell a story and a viewpoint to individuals that will never actually be accepted into that community and viewpoint. So kind of some interesting ideas being bandied around right there. But of course, it all kind of comes to a head with the big attack of Lydia being suckered out at night over by the laundry area and getting Margot and the boys to try and send her away or beat the crap out of her. Again, cruelty, bullyingness, and luckily saved by Negan. Sort of. And all that falls apart very quickly there once we find the death of Margot. Now, and look, I kind of feel bad for Margot in this sense. I mean, as the individual, Negan was right. She was beating on a kid, deserved to die, just fine. But let's look at it from Margot's situation. She has survived 10 years into the zombie apocalypse. She's been a highwayman, she's dealt with the Whisper, she's done all of this, and now she dies because she is lightly tossed away from attacking and trips and hits her head. What a horrible way to go out. What a weakened epitaph for her. And I rewound it a few times. It's not like Negan grabs her and throws her and tosses and everything. No, he almost like kung fu's her. Like she's fighting and he grabs and just tosses her away and then goes up and deals with Lydia. I mean, again, it's a great scene with Negan reaching out there. Again, really trying to be this new person. But Margot, she dies from tripping and hitting her head. It's just an awful epitaph to have on one's grave. And sadly, we are also, and I'm not sure how intentional this was, but we get a really sad reflection on rape culture with this scene also. Because, Daryl is the only one that believes Lydia? The beaten girl laying on the floor surrounded by other people, she's the one at fault. She suckered everyone to go there and beat herself with their fists until they gave in? What exactly was the plan? What exactly is the story? How is this a question? It's blaming the victim right here in such a ridiculous point. Because I'm assuming Negan was out there with his guard, which is why he wasn't in the cell. I don't know if he was picking tomatoes in the middle of the night or doing whatever. But even the blame of that Negan intentionally came in, that this was some sort of setup. Negan's guard must have been with him all the way up until that 30 seconds where they must have heard something happening. And Negan gets there first, throws away Margot, checks on Lydia, and then the guard comes up. Negan, what's going on here? You think he would be able to give a point of Negan was with me. He didn't plan. We heard a tussle. So, again, this is that A to B problem. We are trying to get Lydia really shown on the outs. We're trying to get Negan thrown out so that he can start his own little side storyline and so on. How we get there? Very ridiculous. Very illogical. If anything takes if anyone just takes a step back and really looks at the situation. And it's one of those things that just really annoy me. But I mean, again, we had some great moments. We had some great scenes. Like I said, the scene between him and Daryl was great, where Daryl's trying to find answers and Negan is just, again, very insightfully seeing exactly where everybody's position is and what the reality of the world is that's going on and why he's got to be the bad guy. But again, the downside with that scene is that's every Negan scene. I love it. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is doing an incredible job. Negan and Daryl, they're great characters working off of each other. It's an interesting scene, but we've seen this scene almost all the time with Negan. We saw it with Gabriel a couple episodes ago. We're seeing it again today. The next scene that we see with Negan, it's going to be, again, him looking through and piecing everything out and telling exactly what's going on. So they're great moments, but we've seen them before. There's nothing new, and that's what I'm talking about manufactured in filler for this episode. Everything just feels like it's put in place in order to get to a certain edge, regardless of the internal logic that it might violate. The one scene that was memorable and interesting and didn't annoy me is this week's Scene of the Week. And that is Lydia bringing the rabbit to lunch. Just because it is so in your face for Margot and the boys. This is the one thing, Negan was giving her the advice, don't back down, don't let them get to you. Sometimes you gotta stand up for yourself. So what does she do? Just brings in a rabbit, I'm assuming rabbit, and just starts tearing it apart right in front of him, splashing blood around, just completely not caring, just staring off like, oh yeah, I'm the nasty little creature here. Okay, I'm just gonna sit down here with your dinner and splashing all the blood here. Yes, silence the whispers. It's a small scene. It's a little ridiculous. But it was a great Lydia character moment, and anything that kind of throws anything into these attacking douche group's face, I kind of appreciated. So, small bit, not a lot to it, but I enjoyed it. But beyond that, if we're hitting on the whispers, we do get our implied idea that Alpha is actually behind all of these attacks. Now, initially we were talking last week with the waves of walkers. What was it that Lydia was saying? She wouldn't send small groups. She'd send the entire horde, 10,000 in number, to go and just wipe everyone out. But we also saw in the previous one that Alpha hasn't quite let go of Lydia. And here we have Michonne putting 2 and 2 together and making a very logical 4, is that maybe these attacks aren't meant to destroy, but to weaken, to tire out, to frustrate, and in some ways, for an effective way, turn the town against Lydia so that Lydia feels unsafe and that Lydia leaves. If Lydia leaves the community, then Michonne feels entirely fine with unleashing the horde and taking everybody out. And I think that that's a good plan. I think that's a good idea. It makes sense. Because with the waves of walkers that were heading towards Alexandria last episode, yeah, could the falling satellite have pulled in walkers from the area? Fine. But why were they all heading directly towards Alexandria? It was kind of a question in the air. But of course, if the Whispers are just leading small groups into that direction, not to overrun them, but tire them out, frustrate them, put them on edge, that makes a lot of sense. You get a bunch of Whispers and walkers that come and push a tree down, knocking the wall down on Hillside. You put them in a stressful position. You give them a lot of work that they have to do. You tire them out. And from what we hear from a radio call, now we're starting to see things showing up in Oceanside. So all of these different communities getting hit, yes, Michonne is right. 1, that could be anything. 2, possible coincidence. 3, definitely a planned idea. So I think this is the next stage that we are seeing for the interaction, the conflict between the Whispers and the survivors is Alpha is not interested in taking out the communities just yet. They want to put them on edge to force Lydia out. And once Lydia's out, then the hammer will fall down on the communities and we'll have a whole massive unleashment of walkers on them. Assuming, of course, that that number of walkers is right and that the walkers that they had before winter, when Daryl saw them, are the still numbers that they have there and they haven't lost them, because this would also be a great way of pounding on the communities with not having the same full numbers that you might have had before, but making them think that you did. So this is the good thing that we got out of this episode is we've got some chess moves going on. We got some strategy developing. It's not a straight fight, which will make things definitely more interesting. All right, just a couple of small things. 1, what is going on with Sadiq? That man is falling apart. He is freaking out. I'm not entirely sure why. Does he have a medical condition? Because it seems more of just... if he's panicking, that could cause him to hyperventilate. That could cause the whole vision to kind of strump down like it does, give him that sort of tunnel vision idea. If he's really kind of freaking out about the Whispers and them coming on. Okay, but I don't remember the specific incidents that may have driven him to this point. If you guys remember something that's missing my head, please let me know down in the comments. But yeah, just really trying to figure out what it is that they're doing with Sadiq. Are they just trying to make him stressful in order to introduce new Doc? Or just to have some sort of conflict? Because I don't understand the source of his reaction and why he's doing it. And it just... it separates me from what it is that he's going through. I want to empathize. I don't get it. Now, as I mentioned before, my assumption was that Nico was kind of the leader of our new group, or at least the combat leader. That's from the scenes. That's sort of what implied to me. So I don't understand where Magnus sort of pushback against her are. Except, was the whole thing just to let us know that these lovers were formerly lawyer and client? That Nico was Magda's lawyer? Is that how this whole scene was meant? Is this the piece of information that was designed to be released with all of this conflict? I don't know. I mean, it's a good piece of information. But I don't understand why Magda's so upset with Nico when Nico's trying to step up into a leadership role, which, kind of at Hilltop, is needed. Hey, is Luke gonna die? Anybody else get that feeling? He gets his big goodbye to everybody and hugs and so on, and he's happy. He's heading out to Oceanside. He's gonna see Jules. They might have a little thing going on, but you'll know the moment that there are big goodbyes and someone's happy, they're gonna die. I hope not. I really like Luke as a character. I enjoy him being on the show. But that's all I can think of in that big final big goodbye and hug to everyone is like, oh, Luke's dead. I hope I'm wrong. All right, so by episode's end, Silence the Whispers all over Alexandria. Negan is gone. Who let him out? Don't know, though we are pretty sure it's not Lydia, who has now taken his place inside the jail cell. And, Michonne did ask Daryl to keep her safe, and perhaps with everything going on, being in that jail cell is the safest place for her, at least until we can kind of sort out the rest of these issues. Margot's gone, but the other boys are still around and going to be causing problems. Of course, they're the ones that are probably spray painting with Silence the Whispers all over the walls. But I think we will go ahead and wrap things up for today. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me with these reviews. And if you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, throw those down in the section below. What do you guys think about this episode? Did you like it? Did it feel right to you? Did you also think it was filler? Who do you think let Negan out? All these questions. Let me know your thoughts. Throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe. Got these reviews. Got Final Season Mr. Robot. Got The Mandalorian starting up in just a couple of weeks. Can't wait for that. Don't miss any of these reviews if you're a subscriber. Do that by clicking this button right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here for you to check out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.